Ever wondered how medieval people got married before modern romance and dating? These marriage traditions were stranger than fiction, involving bizarre customs and shocking practices. Many would horrify modern couples. Today I'm revealing the most unbelievable medieval marriage secrets. Arranged marriages. Medieval marriages were business transactions orchestrated by parents seeking economic advantage and social advancement through strategic family alliances. Children had no voice in partner selection, with betrothals arranged in infancy based purely on financial and political considerations. Love was considered irrelevant and potentially dangerous to family interests. Social class restrictions made marriage outside one's economic level virtually impossible, trapping people in predetermined social hierarchies. Marriage markets. Medieval communities held public gatherings where families displayed eligible children like livestock for potential buyers to inspect and evaluate. Parents negotiated dowries and bride prices through competitive bidding that determined marriage arrangements based on highest offers. Physical inspections included assessments of health, fertility potential, and genetic suitability for producing strong offspring. These markets operated like commodity exchanges, where human beings were traded based on economic value rather than personal compatibility or individual desires. Bedding ceremonies. Medieval weddings concluded with shocking public bedding ceremonies where community members escorted newlyweds to their marriage bed and remained to witness consummation. Proof of the bride's virginity was required through blood evidence displayed publicly the following morning. Religious officials blessed the marital bed while family members offered fertility prayers and advice for successful procreation. These invasive practices reflected society's view that marriage was a community concern rather than private relationship between two individuals. Child marriages. Medieval law permitted marriages between children as young as 7 years old, though consummation was typically delayed until physical maturity around 12 to 14 years. Infant betrothals secured political alliances and economic partnerships between powerful families seeking long-term strategic advantages. These arrangements generated immediate economic benefits through dowry exchanges while establishing future political cooperation between allied houses. Children grew up knowing their predetermined spouses and life paths, with no opportunity to develop independent preferences or romantic attachments. Educational and social development focused on preparing children for marriages they had no role in choosing. Parents viewed children as investment opportunities whose marriages could secure family fortunes and social advancement. Legal systems supported these practices by establishing minimum marriage ages that modern society would find shocking. Economic pressures often forced families to arrange marriages for financial survival rather than child welfare considerations. Proxy weddings. Medieval nobility conducted marriages through proxy ceremonies where stand-in representatives performed wedding rituals on behalf of absent brides or grooms located in distant countries. International royal alliances required these arrangements to formalize political treaties and territorial agreements between kingdoms. Legal binding occurred without physical presence of actual marriage partners, who might never meet before becoming husband and wife. Diplomatic marriages secured peace treaties, trade agreements, and military alliances through matrimonial contracts that prioritized state interests over personal relationships. These arrangements often resulted in marriages between strangers who shared no common language or cultural background. Proxy ceremonies included all traditional wedding elements except the actual bride and groom, with representatives exchanging vows, rings, and legal commitments on behalf of their principals. Documentation required extensive legal verification to ensure proxy marriages held same validity as traditional ceremonies. Communication between actual spouses often occurred through letters and intermediaries for months or years before physical meetings. Some proxy marriages never resulted in actual cohabitation due to political changes or diplomatic complications. Trial marriages. Some medieval communities practiced temporary marriage contracts called handfasting that lasted exactly 1 year and 1 day, allowing couples to test compatibility before permanent commitment. These arrangements included built-in escape clauses that permitted easy dissolution if partners proved incompatible during the trial period. Compatibility testing examined everything from personality conflicts to fertility potential and economic cooperation between families. Children born during trial marriages were considered legitimate regardless of whether parents chose permanent union. This practice provided practical solutions to marriage problems while maintaining social stability through flexible relationship structures. Trial periods allowed assessment of reproductive compatibility, economic cooperation, and personal harmony before permanent legal binding. Communities supported these arrangements as pragmatic approaches to marriage success and family stability. Legal frameworks protected both parties during trial periods while establishing clear procedures for permanent marriage or dissolution. Economic arrangements during trials often involved shared resources and joint property management to test partnership viability. Religious authorities sometimes opposed trial marriages, but communities often maintained these practices due to practical benefits. Social acceptance varied by region, with some areas embracing flexible marriage arrangements while others enforced strict permanent unions from the beginning. Bride kidnapping. Medieval societies often legitimized marriage through bride kidnapping, where men could legally claim wives by abducting women and forcing consent through physical possession and social pressure. Raiding neighboring communities for wives was considered acceptable practice in many regions, particularly during times of warfare or resource scarcity. Local customs and legal systems supported these capture traditions, providing minimal protection for women's choice in marriage partners. Communities often celebrated successful bride kidnapping as demonstrations of masculine strength and determination. Families sometimes conspired in arranged kidnappings to circumvent dowry obligations while maintaining appearance of forced marriage. These practices reflected women's status as property rather than autonomous individuals with rights to personal decisions. Legal frameworks established procedures for legitimizing kidnapped marriages through community acceptance and religious ceremonies. Economic motivations drove many kidnappings, as acquiring wives without dowry payments provided financial advantages for poorer families. Geographic isolation made bride kidnapping easier and more common in remote areas where law enforcement was minimal. Cultural traditions celebrated these practices through songs, stories, and festivals that romanticized forced marriage. Social pressure ensured kidnapped women accepted their situations rather than resisting marriages they had no role in choosing. Resistance by women or their families could result in violence or social ostracism. Wedding feasts. Medieval wedding celebrations lasted multiple days and required entire communities to participate through mandatory contributions of food, labor, and entertainment. Social status was demonstrated through wedding extravagance that could bankrupt families attempting to maintain appearances and community standing. Food symbolism included fertility rituals involving specific dishes, ceremonial breads, and alcoholic beverages believed to enhance reproductive success. Community participation was obligatory rather than voluntary, with social penalties for families failing to contribute adequately to wedding festivities. Entertainment included public games, competitions, and performances that reinforced social hierarchies while celebrating the marriage alliance. Waste and excess were expected and encouraged as demonstrations of family wealth and community prosperity. These elaborate celebrations served political functions by displaying family power and cementing social relationships through shared consumption and ritual participation. Feast preparations could take months of planning and resource accumulation to ensure adequate provisions for extended celebrations. Musical performances, dancing, and theatrical displays provided entertainment while reinforcing cultural values and social expectations. Gift-giving ceremonies involved elaborate exchanges that demonstrated family wealth while establishing social obligations between participants. Alcohol consumption was central to celebrations, with specific beverages reserved for different social classes and ceremony stages. Food waste was common and expected, with leftovers distributed to poor community members as displays of charitable generosity. Divorce restrictions. Medieval marriage dissolution was strictly controlled by church authorities who permitted divorce only under extremely limited circumstances such as proven infidelity, abandonment, or discovery of forbidden blood relationships. Annulment procedures required extensive legal proceedings, expensive church fees, and compelling evidence that marriages were invalid from the beginning rather than simply unsuccessful. Social stigma attached to divorced individuals made remarriage difficult and damaged family reputations across multiple generations. Economic consequences included loss of property rights, custody restrictions, and reduced social standing that affected entire extended families. Women faced particularly harsh penalties, often losing children, inheritance rights, and social protection when marriages ended. Church oversight ensured that marriage dissolution remained rare and difficult, maintaining social stability through enforced permanent unions regardless of personal happiness or compatibility between spouses. Legal proceedings could last years and require testimony from multiple witnesses to establish grounds for annulment. Financial costs of divorce proceedings excluded most ordinary people from accessing marriage dissolution even when justified. Religious doctrine emphasized marriage permanence as divine commandment, making divorce requests appear as challenges to religious authority. Political considerations often influence divorce decisions, with powerful families receiving favorable treatment while common people faced insurmountable obstacles. Alternative arrangements like legal separation allowed couples to live apart while maintaining marriage bonds that prevented remarriage opportunities. Consummation requirements. Medieval marriage law required physical consummation to establish legal validity, with unconsummated marriages considered incomplete and potentially invalid regardless of ceremonial completion. Public verification involved witness testimony, medical examinations, and physical evidence that intimate relations had occurred between married partners. Church officials supervised these requirements through invasive questioning and examinations that violated personal privacy in favor of legal certainty. Documentation included sworn statements, medical reports, and community testimony confirming that marriages had been properly completed through sexual union. Legal disputes over inheritance, property rights, and marriage validity often centered on proof of consummation, making intimate details matters of public record. Failure to consummate marriages within reasonable timeframes could result in annulment, social disgrace, and legal complications affecting family standing and economic security. Medical examinations of brides were conducted by church-appointed physicians or midwives who provided official certification of marital completion. Witness requirements sometimes involved family members or community officials who could testify to consummation evidence like blood-stained bedding or other physical proof. Legal battles over unconsummated marriages could involve detailed testimony about intimate behaviors and physical capabilities of spouses. Religious authorities viewed consummation as divine commandment essential for valid marriage and legitimate procreation. Social pressure ensured couples fulfilled consummation requirements despite personal preferences or physical difficulties that might complicate intimate relations. Marriage contracts. Medieval marriages required detailed legal agreements that specified exact obligations, property rights, inheritance rules, and behavioral expectations for both spouses throughout their union. These contracts functioned as business partnerships that formalized economic relationships between families while establishing clear guidelines for marital conduct and responsibilities. Property specifications included detailed inventories of dowries, bride prices, land holdings, and inheritance rights that would transfer between families through marriage. Behavioral clauses outlined specific expectations for spousal conduct, including religious observance, social behavior, and reproductive obligations that could be legally enforced. Penalty provisions established consequences for contract violations, including financial payments, property forfeiture, and social sanctions for failing to meet marital obligations. Business partnerships formed through marriage often took precedence over personal relationships, with contracts designed to protect family interests rather than individual happiness or compatibility between spouses. Legal documentation required multiple witnesses, official seals, and church approval to ensure contract validity and enforceability. Negotiation processes involved extended discussions between families who balanced economic interests with social considerations and political advantages. Contract modifications required mutual agreement and legal procedures that protected both families' interests while accommodating changing circumstances. Inheritance clauses specified detailed procedures for property transfer in cases of death, divorce, or other marriage dissolution scenarios. Economic obligations included specific financial responsibilities, property maintenance requirements, and business partnership duties that extended beyond personal relationships. Dispute resolution procedures established legal frameworks for addressing contract violations and resolving conflicts between married partners and their families. Wedding rituals. Medieval wedding ceremonies combined Christian religious elements with ancient pagan traditions that created bizarre hybrid rituals involving supernatural beliefs and fertility magic. Regional variations included strange practices like jumping over swords, exchanging unusual gifts, and performing symbolic acts designed to ensure marital success and reproductive fertility. Superstitious customs involved specific timing requirements, ceremonial objects, and ritual performances believed necessary for valid marriages and future happiness. Religious officials often incorporated pagan elements into Christian ceremonies to maintain community acceptance while asserting church authority over marriage practices. Fertility rituals included throwing rice, sharing special foods, and performing ceremonial dances designed to encourage procreation and family prosperity. Community participation involved specific roles, responsibilities, and ritual performances that reinforced social bonds while celebrating marriage alliances. These complex ceremonies could last entire days and required extensive preparation, coordination, and community cooperation to ensure proper completion of all necessary ritual elements. Sacred objects like rings, crowns, and ceremonial clothing carried symbolic meaning that connected couples to divine blessings and community traditions. Seasonal timing coordinated weddings with agricultural cycles and religious calendars that optimized supernatural benefits and community participation. Musical elements included specific songs, chants, and instrumental performances that invoked divine favor while entertaining wedding guests. Blessing ceremonies involved multiple religious officials who performed various rituals designed to ensure spiritual protection and marital success. Traditional foods served during ceremonies carried symbolic meaning related to fertility, prosperity, and family unity that reinforced cultural values through shared consumption. These shocking medieval marriage traditions reveal how dramatically relationship customs have evolved throughout history. While modern marriages face challenges, we can appreciate the freedom to choose partners based on love rather than economic necessity or political advantage. Ready to discover more shocking historical truths that challenge modern assumptions? Subscribe for weekly insights into the strange customs that shaped human civilization